Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the course of the next 5 days. And it's remaining fairly dry. There will be some showers and some precipitation around, but generally pretty dry for all, and it will feel fairly chilly as well, especially in the north and the west, but still areas in the south could stay cold as they have been over the past week or so. As we look in the longer range though, as we'll see on the GFS, GEM, ECMWF and the ensembles, it is turning quite westerly, perhaps from as early as sort of the start of next week. Different models have different time frames on it because we still have high pressure trying to ridge up from the south, and that could halt at least the westerly flow in the south for a time, but it is looking likely a pest from the west pattern will prevail towards the end of the month and start of February. We're thinking perhaps we could even see some cold weather towards the start of February, but all that ridging from the Atlantic looking like it's going to be suppressed by the tropospheric polar vortex, and we're going to be seeing a strong westerly pattern. The extent of those westerlies still yet to be determined. They could have just had the jet stream flapped over the top of us, with the south mild but drier, the north cooler and wetter, or we could actually go into a really stormy pattern, as the GFS has been alluding to today and over the last few days, with big low pressure systems coming out of Greenland and northeast Canada towards the UK, potentially giving us our first named storm of the 2022-23 season. So we will have to see, but anything other than westerlies at the moment looks pretty unlikely, at least for the next week to 10 days. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see we've got a band of precipitation through central areas, and we're calling this around 3:30, so by the time you're seeing this, this area will have moved a few tens of miles further southwards probably, but it's not particularly heavy. But it is still pretty miserable and cloudy underneath it, with some heavier pulses in places. Now, this is a weather front that is pushing away that cold air that had just been blocked and just sat over the top of central southern England for the last few days, giving very cold conditions in the day and overnight. It's pushing that away with a fresher northerly flow. So the upper air temperatures, as we said in yesterday's video, are actually colder than the upper air temperatures it is pushing away. It's a cold front, this, but actually towards the surface it'll introduce more mixing of air, actually will turn it slightly milder than it has been in central and southern areas over the last few days, but really only up to maybe 6 or 7 degrees in the day and around freezing at night, instead of sort of 3 or 4 degrees in the day and -5 overnight. But widely, all areas probably tonight will see an overnight frost, and tomorrow will be a generally chilly day, as we're still generally under the higher pressure, but with more of a northerly to northwesterly influence. But again, the area is originating from the North Atlantic, so it's not especially cold, and this high pressure will be edging further southwards over the coming days, and that will open the door to more unsettled westerly conditions. As I said, if we look at the temperatures, you can see that cold air still lingering in the southeast, but it's getting pushed away by the weather front. And I said, the air behind it at the upper levels, around 850 HPA, is actually quite a bit colder than the air it is pushing away. But at the surface, it's almost a warm front, but at the 850 HPA level, where we generally look for our air masses, is actually more of a cold front. So a bit of an inversion, as we've been alluding to. So it's still cold in the southeast, but for areas further northwards and westwards, more around sort of 8 or 9 degrees today. But those temperatures overnight will get a lot colder, and probably tomorrow the temperatures in the day will be chilly as well, around 5 or 6 degrees. So if we do go to the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the course of the next 5 days, you can see around 3 p.m. that precipitation is spreading southwards, much clearer skies to the north of it. It's quite a bit nicer, and as it exits overnight tonight, clear skies for all, so no trapped cloud in places, and it should be a pretty cold night, temperatures widely around the freezing point, and then into tomorrow afternoon, generally again another dry day. Less cloud around, a few patchy clouds around, some cumulus clouds, but generally quite bright. A few showers in the north and the east, but really not too bad for the end of January. It will be chilly with a bit of a northerly flow and cooler upper air temperatures, but nothing especially cold. Through Thursday night into Friday, again, potentially another overnight frost where we see clearer skies, but another weather front is spreading through with some more cloud and some patchy rain through Friday evening into Saturday. And then Saturday, not particularly high amounts of rainfall around, but some real thick, miserable sort of cloudy conditions, especially further northwards. The south and the east could just hold on to some clearer skies there. And that moves into Sunday. Cloud for all, pretty miserable there. Yes, not too much heavy rain around for Sunday afternoon, bar from the far north of Scotland and through the central belt perhaps, but it's just miserable out there with thick cloud, making it feel really quite gloomy, even though the temperatures probably at the surface will be relatively mild for this time of year. And then as we head into next week, another area of cooler air does push in from the north. You see a few wintry showers over the higher ground, and all this precipitation, more unsettled weather, will continue to get more widespread through next week as the jet stream pushes in and as the higher pressure sinks to our south. You can see on the mean sea level pressure, you can see the high pressure is moving away to our south. At the moment, it's still generally quite over the top of us, but by next week you can see the tilt more from a west to northwesterly direction, and that high pressure is edging away, giving us more unsettled conditions into next week. Now, for polar max temperatures, you can see this afternoon still chilly in the far southeast, but most other areas sort of 6 to 8 degrees. Overnight tonight, as I said, widely getting down to that freezing point, maybe 0 to 2 degrees, but widespread frost potential here. No areas that are especially more likely, probably more inland, of course, but cold pretty much everywhere, but not especially cold. And then through tomorrow, you can see temperatures are generally cool, around 5 to 7 degrees on average for the time of year, with a bit of a northerly flow. Might feel a bit chilly, but not quite as cold in southern areas than it has been over the last few days, even though the upper air temperatures are actually a good few degrees colder. As we head through Thursday into Friday, the overnight temperatures once again, frost in the north and west, more cloud further south and eastwards, holding those temperatures up. And then into Friday afternoon, again, a chilly day, 5 to 7 degrees, nothing especially cold though, nothing mild either. Into Friday evening, into Saturday, widespread overnight frost for England and Wales, with clearer skies. And then into Saturday afternoon, again, 6 to 8 degrees average to maybe slightly above average in some areas, slightly below average in others. And then into Sunday, again, overnight frost in areas where we have clearer skies, but through central areas where we've got a lot of thicker cloud, we do hold those temperatures up. And then into Sunday in the day, turning a little bit milder, maybe more 7 to 9 degrees, maybe north 10 degree there, as we're generally turning slightly milder with the wind direction veering more westerly than from a north or northwesterly direction. So, over the next 5 days, nothing really is happening, just remaining fairly cool, nothing especially mild, some cold days, some sort of average days, and quite a few overnight frosts in places. But of course, it is dry, so we can't make too many complaints out of that after the very wet second half of December and first half of January. But I do think it will definitely be turning a lot wetter to the start of February, most likely initially in the north and the west, but could be spreading more widespread into the middle of the month or first sort of week or two of the month, but as we'll see in the models in a minute. So if you go over to the GFS and see what that is showing over the course of the next couple of weeks, again, high pressure over the top of us, but you can see it is slowly edging to our south. A bit of a northerly flow comes there in Sunday into Monday. That's a chilly air mass, but you can see how the jet stream's flat over the top of us. That black line's coming directly straight across the Atlantic. Initially, very unsettled in the north to end January and start February, but drier and probably a little bit cooler further southwards. If we see a bit of an inversion, but equally if we see more of a southwesterly air mass, it could be milder. Those things will only be deciphered nearer the time. As we move beyond that into the first week of February, you can see those big purples appearing towards the south of Greenland, very unsettled weather coming, and look, it pushes that high pressure away, and here is around the 5th, 6th of February, all areas go cooler and very unsettled and potentially stormy as well. Beyond that, we remain very, very unsettled, and this pest from the west pattern just continues. Ridging of high pressure tries to come up from the south and the east, but all these lows are just building in the Atlantic, and we stay very unsettled, perhaps very stormy as well, and yeah, a lot of rain and wind with this. If you move to the GEM, see how that does compare. Again, high pressure and controlled at the moment, more of a flat westerly next week. Some brief northerly incursions here or there, but eventually that high pressure gets shoved away from our south. Could be quite late next week, but eventually look at all these purples starting to move in. High pressure still actually is lingering in the south, so it could keep many areas of England and Wales quite dry next week. But you can see the theme though is for westerlies to push in. GEM definitely more keeping it in the north, but the GFS moved it further southwards. So where that dividing line between settled and more unsettled conditions is, we'll have to continue to keep an eye on it. But here, it is going incredibly unsettled into the first week of February. Just not quite showing it in the day 10 time frame, but look at those purples toward northeast Canada and Greenland. It would be plunging us very unsettled and stormy, perhaps around that 5th to 10th of February point. If you compare to the ECMWF, again, high pressure over the top of us. It is getting we're trying to get pushed away to our south. Brief northern incursion possible on Sunday into Monday, and then we just go westerly. And here it is pretty much flat westerly. The far south still trying to stay under a ridge of high pressure, but it's getting pushed away, so it probably will be unsettled at times, and very strong westerly winds at day 10. You can't get more of a flat jet stream than that. All this cold air coming out of northeast Canada up against mild mid-Atlantic air is just powering the jet stream. You look at the 300 HPA winds, and look at that extremely powerful jet stream, a pest from the west pattern, keeping us very unsettled. You can look at the 200 HPA level as well, very strong. Again, just showing you the strength of the jet stream as we head into early February. Now, things can change. It's quite common for things at day 7 to day 10 to change, but this sort of very consistent, persistent pattern as well, I don't think it will be that we've got much luck of it changing too significantly from this. Yes, the jet stream could push further northwards, maybe keeping it drier in the south, or could push further southwards, keeping it cooler and more unsettled widely, but I don't think we'll see much of a pattern change from this into early February. If you look for any cold weather or any drier weather, well, enjoy the next sort of few days in the north and the next week or so further southwards, and then it probably is around that 10th to 15th point in February where we could see some impacts from the stratospheric warming. Not a major sudden stratospheric warming, but stratospheric warming nonetheless that could aid more blocking into February, and that's really something we have to look at nearer the time into the middle of February. But for the time being, pest from the west, a very unsettled pattern, is looking very, very likely. If we finish by looking at the ensembles, you can't see it's immediately obvious here from the London ensembles, but generally average, below and slightly above at times over the course of the next couple of weeks. So again, a generally westerly theme. And as you can see, around the 3rd, 4th, 5th of February point, turning incredibly unsettled, very unsettled there, with quite a few precipitation spikes appearing. Not quite as many as you'd suspect for a very stormy spell, but that's because we still have some members like similar to the GEM run, keeping that higher pressure ridging in the south, which could keep us drier in the south, but still windy and blustery, just not as much frontal rainfall. Again, you look at the sea level pressure, turning a lot more unsettled in the long term. Yes, not dropping by too many millibars, by around 5 to 10. But again, London most likely is going to be on the edge of the lower pressure system, not really near the centre. If you look at Glasgow, on the other hand, you can see much lower, towards 1,000 millibars, with some dropping down to 970 or even 960 and below, showing real unsettled conditions pushing. And of course, there are some high pressure outliers here, but I think the general trend is for unsettled conditions. If we go back to London and look at the ECMWF ensemble members for the midnight run, again it is showing very similar, around average, if not slightly more below average from the ECMWF here. Some cold air masses in the longer term, but again those will be transient polar maritime air masses there coming in on the backside of low pressure systems, so we're not expecting any blocking or any major cold northerly easterlies here, and turning quite unsettled as well. Again, I must emphasise the main risk of big precipitation, very windy weather is further northwards, but it could extend southwards as well, especially into early February. But that is still an area of uncertainty, just depending on how far southwards or northwards the jet stream does go. And of course, we'll have to keep an eye on that, and we'll keep you updated over the next few days. But it's looking very unsettled in the long term. Pest from the west pattern, potentially quite stormy as well. Could be cooler, could be milder at times, but I think generally it will come out around average. So if you are enjoying this dry weather, make sure you do take note of it the next sort of week or so in the south, where it could linger. Further northwards, at least the next sort of 3, 4, 5 days, where there will be some patchy showers around, but generally no huge weather fronts. But as we head into the middle of next week, that's when we could start to see some big weather fronts starting to arrive once again in the north. So make sure you do cherish this dry weather. As is well known in the UK, when sometimes we get these pests from the west patterns, they can last a number of weeks, which It's not great, but it just make sure you do enjoy the dry weather we have at the moment. If you haven't got any plans to get out and about, it is going to be going very unsettled, very rainy, and potentially very windy and stormy as well. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.